Economic Forum Future of the Internet Council. He serves as the director of the board as well as an advisor to the Tribeca Venture Partners. He's been named by Goldman Sachs as one of the world's 100 most intriguing entrepreneurs. With that, Jonathan, please take it away. And again, we'll have the Q&A in the last approximately about 20 minutes of the session.
Great, and thanks to the entire community for this opportunity to outline one of the most interesting and yet most solvable issues confronting global society. Is sent to landfills versus what is actually recycled. And that the key is leveraging the internet to drive lasting behavior change that will lead to real-world impact. Today, I was going to take a little bit of time to tell you a little bit about the company.
Jonathan, sorry. There's a little bit of background noise. I don't know if you have a headset that's possible to use.
I think it's on my end. I think it might be maybe some of the participants have it muted.
Quentin's able to unmute them. If there's a better solution on your end, it sounds it's not too bad if that's tough.
Okay. So I will give you just a quick snapshot about Recyclebank. More importantly, talk about the context of why we exist, and talk about the nuts and bolts, the value proposition we deliver to not only the communities, members, and then our corporate partners. And we believe that everyone has a role to play in part of the solution. So let me just start and level set and tell a 30,000-foot overview of what Recyclebank is. A purpose-driven company that rewards people for taking everyday actions, recycling. Of ours as a frequent flyer program for the environment. The relevant statistics that we have achieved. The company was founded in 2004 by a pair of Columbia Business School students with the simple premise that if you could actually incent people to take incremental action, they'll do more of it. Obviously, recycling was one of the more tangible, everyday aspects that individuals could directly impact. Itself has grown a great deal, especially over the last 2 or 3 years. Achieved at least an initial amount of scale with over 4 million members throughout the United States, throughout 150-plus cities and communities in the U.S. And most importantly, not only do we drive an environmental impact, you can see that we drove and rewarded over 500 million pounds of recycling over the past year, but we drive real economic value to our members, to the community, and to the business partners to get involved. In consequence, although the company has been fortunate to get lots of recognition and praise for what it's achieved, on a personal level, the most gratifying part of this journey with Recyclebank is how much individuals really care about the company and what we're trying to achieve. I personally have never had the privilege of working for a company where everyone involved wants it to succeed so badly and they care inherently about what we're trying to achieve. What I'm going to try to share with you today is some underlying reasons why that is the case with Recyclebank, how we can all work together to achieve some of these macro goals that we want to accomplish as a society. So let me start with a little bit of context, and I won't be too overly dramatic, but we all know the statistics. Today's global population of 6 billion will explode to over 10 billion over the next 35 years. And we do have an inherent belief we have to work collaboratively across all constituencies, across all countries, to make sure that this will sustain not only our current generation but the generations to come. With context, one of the most interesting trends over the last 20 years has been the rise of the global middle class. The rise of innovation, free trade, dramatic advancements in technology have literally lifted hundreds of millions of people out of poverty, allowing people to improve their health care, for better education for their children, and indeed buy more goods and services. But downstream consequence for this. Globally, now over 675 million tons of trash are sent to landfills each year. From the environmental impact, there's an economic one as well. Governments spend over $5 billion a year on waste disposal fees. It's a very significant line item on most city governments' budgets regarding waste disposal. The individuals come in. But lots of insight studies have been done, including many that have been done by Recyclebank on its 4 million plus members. And overwhelmingly, we show that individuals would actually do more for the environment if actually understood how their particular action would not only the environment, but they benefit themselves personally. 18% of the midstream in the U.S. Is actually recycled. Why does that disconnect persist? That comes in. We are a mission-driven company where we want to motivate individuals and communities to realize a world is wasted. We combine education, mission, and financial incentives to and motivate individuals and their families to increase recycling from everyday green action, behavioral change, and not along their own personal sustainability journey. Why this? And a feeling of why we matter to the individuals, the community, and to the business partners. So let's talk about those three constituencies and let you have an opportunity to hear directly from them what Recyclebank means to them and what role they individually play in this audacious mission. Major and corporate partners, and last but certainly not least, the members themselves.
This we can. Is there audio with this?
Are you unable to the audio with it?
Correct.
Is that across the board?
Correct. Oh, sure.
Okay.
Sure. You want to replay it?
Okay, sorry.
Turn it up much
Quentin,
louder.
Able to hear that on your end?
Going through fine for me, actually.
Sorry.
Okay.
That's okay. Let's take off. But make it full screen, Jonathan. Keep it
very good.
Minimized.
Not minimalized.
Well, as it is at the moment.
Okay. check the audio was okay on your end on that one.
So if anybody else is having problems, just send chat through to me, Quentin Drill.
And so that was the perspective from our communities, the mayors, the city councils. Not only did we direct economic value for the mayors and city councils, but in reality, we are helping them redefine what an engagement with their citizens in the 21st century really means and what that community should develop like, where we pitch in and are part of a greater a sum of individuals. Let me share with you a bit about our other constituency, major corporations like a Unilever and Johnson, Coca-Cola, and what we bring to the table and what role they can play in helping achieve our mission. So, very exciting and quite frankly impactful aspect of our platform at Recyclebank is the deep involvement and partnership of some of the largest and most forward-thinking corporate partners like Waste Management or Nancy Johnson, a Unilever and a Coca-Cola. Very encouraging trend and one that resonated with me a great deal at the most recent annual meeting of the World Economic Forum. Global Fortune 1000 companies are rapidly rethinking their long-term relationship with individual consumers and what role those corporations will play in the lives of those consumers over a very long duration, measured in decades. And forward-thinking companies are ready to take action to reach and enhance that relationship for the long run. And Recyclebank is one of the key ways several of these companies are re-engaging consumers over the long run on a very positive context. Last but certainly not least, I give you the perspective from our members and what we get out of the program. So those are the three constituencies that we bring together. And one that I can share with you is that these three constituencies, individual consumers, the creative and work, and these major corporate brands, have in the past not tended to collaborate well with one another, and have oftentimes been at odds with one another in terms of what they were trying to achieve. What we've seen year after year is an increasing acknowledgement reality that all of us have to work together, all three constituencies, to achieve some of the larger goals. And have this be a one-party win where the other party loses, one of the classic win-win-win situations that, if done correctly, additional societal and mental value is created for everyone involved. And so as a consequence, we have seen major steps forward through the collaboration between individuals and major corporations, and I'll give you some concrete examples of this as we go through the presentation. Shift gears a little bit and talk a little bit about the nuts and bolts about the program and how actually it works. You can see here, residents will go ahead and put the materials at the curbside. Those materials will be collected by their local recycling hauler, in this case, Waste Management. That material is collected. It is weighed. That really is reported at the city level because how either the city is charged for what is put into landfills by weight, or it is representative in the calculation of what money they get back from the recycling that they collect. As those weights are collected, those weights are then converted into Recyclebank points. Think of it as very much like when you go to an airplane and you fly a mile, you get 1 point. For every pound of recycling that a household produces, we issue them 2.5 points. So, although we'll talk a little bit about this, let me specifically outline the value that drive for mayors, the communities, the town councils. Obviously, many cities are now taking the lead on putting forth aggressive sustainability goals. Everything from increased pulling off baseline targets to all the way to zero waste. Interestingly, they also want to drive the vibrancy of the local economy. So they are always interested in ways of driving revenue to local businesses. The pillar, in addition to that, is how do they talk and engage with their citizens? The world has certainly transformed over the last 10 years with the proliferation of the internet and the social web, and municipalities have not kept up. Not only just on information flow, but how do you get a two-way information flow going between citizens and government? And there are direct goals around increased recycling, decreased waste disposal costs. That is a key economic value proposition. But for recycling, we can help cities, mayors, city councils achieve all of this and more. One of the things that we did early on, as a early stage high growth company, one of the key challenges for all companies is how do you get scale? One of the challenges for Recyclebank in particular is as we sign up each municipality and city, they tend to be 6-month to 3-year sales cycles. Like any other city government contract that any other partner or vendor would sell into a city government. Very long sales cycles. That very early on, not only was that a hurdle for Amplify and accelerated scale, beyond that, when you came to recycling, not education and incentives a critical piece, but infrastructure. literally 50% of households in the United States don't even have access to a recycling program. Access to a recycling program, how in the world are you going to recycle, even if you're incented to do so? From the 96-gallon bins in front of your house to the sorting facilities, the MRFs, the material recovery facilities available in your local area. In the United States, at least, is disposal and recycling is a very fractured, localized decision. It rests historically with the town, city, or municipality, and there's very little statewide and certainly not national-wide standardization. It actually has been one of the impeding factors to wider and greater increases in recycling rates, which actually have been largely stagnant over the last 30 years. Actually, I can live in one town, and the town next door will have completely different policies on recycling, on what can be recycled, over what time frame, and to what economic benefits for the city. We want to be able to partner with the largest environmental services firms, both on the haul and the recycling side in waste management. It's a publicly traded $30 billion company. They have approximately 25% market share across the United States. They own the largest infrastructure of recycling, sorting, and commodities selling of any company in the world. From that partnership at the end of 2011, and it has quickly borne lots of fruit by accelerated deployment. We're able to get an incremental 1 million households, or 33% of our installed base at the time, deployed last year in the very first year of the partnership with Waste Management. And so are very fortunate to be able to partner with such a forward-thinking, Washington company like Waste Management. But that was, frankly, one of the key learnings and insights that we had as we understood what were the hurdles to real scale and impact. Too tactical, but I want to make sure that we understand the process and operations involved when you go to market with a recycle bank. With built in that world, where often we take for granted that we can just send an email blast or show ads or videos and have some sort of change. What I've realized, and what we come to really appreciate, we take a step back, really makes sense, that despite advancements in the internet and proliferation of communication channels in the social web, we spend 5% of our days in the real world. We are real communities, talk and interact with our real world neighbors, send children to real world schools, and spend most of our time interacting with people in the real world. And so our insight was that we leverage all great communication channels from the internet and the social web, but use Amplify a world touch with our members in each community. And when we launch in a new community like a Fort Worth or Little Rock or Philadelphia, we actually create a very comprehensive day launch plan that includes office activities, online activities, and a whole preparation of materials and physical outreach to make sure that we saturate and launch the program properly from the launch date. And the reason why it works for a company like ours is twofold. One, we have both the privilege and the obligation to serve everyone in the city. So when you roll into a city, every single household gets a Recyclebank account. So one of the 195,000 households in Fort Worth is a Recyclebank member. Two, we, because of the nature of the government contract, we were part of that community for 3, 4, 5+ years, sometimes even longer than that. And so as a consequence, we have both the wherewithal and obligation to build a solid foundation that is not a prompt to transact one time on a one-and-done basis, but to have long-duration engagement. Because behavioral change requires long-duration engagement. So think of this launch plan as a comprehensive acquisition plan once the member comes on board that includes all these elements. So not only all the online elements, but you can see here the standard direct marketing launches. So starts off with a letter from Waste Management, ourselves, and the mayor announcing the program. The segregation mailer is showing a unique identifier code for each person's account, and then a follow-up reminder with specific rewards for activating and doing additional actions. That's up at launch with a very full suite of in-community events, everything from park openings to press events. Obviously, mayors and city councils love getting in front, talking about the program, and bringing it to the community. But sometimes we get corporate sponsors involved, like the picture lower right was a playground made of recycled materials that F.E. Johnson did to Corpus Christi. And obviously, in today's world of strained city and municipal budgets, the incremental amount of money that we can bring to bear to engage communities and give back and improve the infrastructure is much appreciated.
And notice El Macho made its way into the photo.
Yes, it's very important.
That's people in the YGL community. So good to hear he's fully behind Recyclebank.
Yes. And once we have everyone on board and launch in the community, we need a number of follow-up assets online and offline that work collaboratively with the city, with corporate partners, with waste management, to make sure that we stay front and center in front of everyone. So you can see the full suite of assets offline provide as toolkits to the city. So it makes as a agency, like here's the communication plan for local government to talk to their citizens over a long time in a very positive context. Here's a very interesting case study of why economics work. The two levers that I talked about just from a straight economic standpoint is how much does the city on waste diversion or waste avoidance fees, and how much commodity revenue they get back. So you can see in the 3-year engagement so far with the city of Philadelphia, you can see over 1 1/4, actually it's now 1.75 as of last month, this bulk saved, and then the amount of commodity revenue generated, 2.3 million plus over 3 million of commodity we've generated for the city of Philadelphia. And that's all incremental either savings or incremental new net revenue back. Again, in this day and age. Let me just quickly jump to the member experience. In today's world, consumers hold all the power and ultimately own the keys to the kingdom. The proposition for our members is very simple. Recycle, perform all these every actions, earn points, convert those points on an online shopping experience on our catalog. They can redeem it for one of over 4,000 deals and discounts I'll show you about. We engage with members online and offline, as I showed you up front. And we've brought in the best practices. So many of my colleagues here at Recyclebank are from the internet industry, the web industry, lots of internet advertising companies, a lot of consumer-facing properties. And so, although we're not having to use any new technologies to bear, we are only leveraging all of the existing channels on which people utilize to communicate and interact with one another. Interesting part, which you saw in the upfront video on the involvement of Unilevers and F.E. Johnsons and the Waste Management and the Cokes of the world, is that one of the things on the internet is there's a thing called banner blindness, where the advertising industry has become a $35 billion global industry. Was in the advertising industry. It certainly has now joined the ranks of broadcast television as one of the primary channels of reaching individuals. in reality, in today's day and age, consumers don't want to be talked to. They want to learn, have conversation, be of a long-term relationship with whoever's on their side. And the most forward-thinking companies are embracing this. There are different channels to do this, but through Recyclebank, companies F.E. Johnson or Miller Coursier or in this case Johnson & Johnson will help us sponsor the creation of content that is educational in nature, that is inspirational and fun, and allow individuals to learn a little bit of something, learn why a company like F.E. Johnson cares about it, and then therefore drive to incremental actions that benefit everyone. Now, obviously, this is good from my perspective because it helps them get educated and actually gives them more chances to earn points and have more impact. But from the perspective, it actually is a really interesting way to build a relationship of trust and a dialogue with individual consumers over a long period of time. For instance, in the case of F.E. Johnson here, last year they sponsored a program where we signed up one community in each of the 50 U.S. states to have a recycling challenge. A lot of it was around education and local engagement. F.E. Johnson helped sponsor the education and outreach to these communities. We sponsored the grand prize of $100,000 to help a community wrap on either a park or a playground or a project that is important to the community. And so this is one of the most interesting ways on how major companies are rethinking how they engage individuals and communities, and not just show ads and sell. It's really thinking about the relationship with an individual and how they could collectively help individuals live better, fuller, healthier lives. That is a trend, a mega trend that you'll see amplify over the upcoming years. Once members earn points, engage with content, they use those points and redeem them on the rewards portal at Recyclebank. Here's a snapshot of what that would look like. And there are over 4,000 types of rewards, everything from being able to get valuable coupons off major consumer product goods companies to deals and discounts from local businesses that are aligned. And so that could range from everything from a free appetizer at your local Italian restaurant to $5 off 50 at the local grocery store. But we find that local community stores in particular are very interested. Now, the proposition to them, aside from doing good in the community, is obviously we're driving foot traffic to the local businesses, which not only helps those businesses, but is very beneficial from the mayor and city council's perspective. And the average member will earn enough points to drive over 165 per year. So a very nice adjunct for something that someone should be doing anyway. So what are all of this? We do constant insight studies. We are probably the largest living laboratory of customers who are that are sustainability context. 82% do recycle more. More importantly, members will take incremental green actions once they recycle more. And importantly, from a business standpoint and a resident standpoint, they would be happy if we weren't around. Well, this past year we've driven and sent over 500 million pounds of recycling. That translates to over 5,000 barrels of oil saved, or it's equivalent to planting 3 million trees, or taking 1,000 cars off the road. More importantly, we have driven real economic savings. So cities have saved tens of millions of dollars in avoided disposal costs and increased commodity revenue from recycling. Members have earned over $50 million worth of rewards in 2012, has driven over $125 million of local commerce. So tangible economic savings off of the environmental savings. As a consequence, this company is very blessed to have been recognized by a number of different channels. As I mentioned up front, the greatest recognition for me is when I go into a community and people without prompting come up to me and tell me how much they love the program, how they're doing their part, why they believe it's important, why they continue pressing forward, and how we can all have a hand in this together. And with that, what I mean and what I currently believe, we all have a role to play, and then we all have to be part of the solution. So I encourage all of us to contribute in our own way to solving some of the greatest challenges facing society, and I truly believe that we will overcome together. I will turn it back over to David and Quentin to answer any questions that you might have. Thank you for the opportunity to give a little bit of context of what we're trying to accomplish.
Jonathan, and it's okay, among friends, you could admit that what you're most proud of is receiving the World Economic Forum recognition, so well deserved.
Of course. I wear my badge proudly everywhere.
Yeah. Anyway, fantastic. You guys rock, and that was a great presentation, and thanks for sharing some of the business side of what's going on. So there's much complexity here. Could you speak to how hard is this to actually do everything you guys do?
That's the $64 billion question, really. Scope of what we're trying to do is audacious, right? Recycling rates have been stagnant for 30 years. The problem on the environmental side is only getting worse. The actual engagement of cities tend to take a long period of time. And the fact that the constituencies that we are bringing together, the community and the corporate, have not tended to collaborate or work well together in the past. And there's no road, so to speak, on how to get everyone involved and what role to play over what time period. I will say, however, that as much effort as it takes and the table, what is very encouraging how aligned long-term worldview is. And, stripping away rhetoric, the magnitude of the challenge confronting all of us. And everyone understands that no one party has wherewithal to do alone. The intent is there, the end is there. I feel very privileged to be part of that roadmap to help guide different parties along the journey. But it is not easy. But the great, most worthwhile things in life are seldom easy, and so that's what drives us.
So, look at that next geography. What are the patterns that made geography successful? And at the same time, what makes it, like when you look at a geography, what makes it one you want to stay away from? What are the key pieces that you look for?
So right now is in the United States. We have 4.5 million members. Waste Management has an installed base of over 20 million households. The overall addressable market is approximately 50 million households. So, although we've made some very good strides to date, the fact is that we're still very early on the market penetration in the United States. So at least for the next year or two, it's going to be a big focus for us, especially on the current installed base for Waste Management, which they committed to rolling our program into over the upcoming years. In terms of other geographies, obviously, just because of this company and the privilege they have through forums like the World Economic Forum. We do have questions and inbounds on how, if we extend to other countries like Brazil, lots of inquiries from Asia, lots of inquiries from the Middle East. The challenge has been, as a high-growth, early-stage company, we want to make sure we do it correctly. We're in it for the long run, that we build critical mass, that we don't take shortcuts. We've been reticent to even joint venture outside of the United States currently. Even myself and many members of my management team have international experience. Prior to this, at 24/7, we have operation in 12 different countries in 4 continents, and so we're very familiar with the local market nuances. These are the characteristics that make the most sense. In areas where there are little or no legacy infrastructure, such as Brazil, such as China, actually, when you don't have to adopt a system to make sure that you don't have any feathers on embedded infrastructure, that's very helpful. Obviously, there's a lot of hanging fruit because many of the behavioral traits of this emerging middle class aren't set in stone yet. And so the sooner you engage people as they become more prosperous, it's better for them to get into the right habit and state now than for that habits to burn in and then try to impose a behavioral change platform onto them later on. In terms of areas, frankly, that are not as receptive to a product like this, which is an incentive program. It's a carrot, not a stick. Our fees, there are already very high compliance rates, but mostly because of government fines. So fine would be like a Switzerland or a Germany, where there's a very active recycling culture and sustainability culture, but a culture that has been kind of imposed from the top down through enforcement mechanisms like severe fines and compliance directives, rather than from the ground from individual behavior change.
Excellent, thanks. And questions coming in from the group as well. Is there a technology that's most important to drive the success of the business? And to that, going forward, is there a technology that you want that even gets things going faster?
So, frankly, there's no technology risk per se in this model because we're leveraging all technologies today, databases, analytics, email, web. So, we're taking out the technology risk associated with the program. It's more about the collaboration effort that is needed to bring the parties together and make sure that everyone's interest aligned over the duration. The mega trend of the proliferation of the social web and mobile technology presents a way to further enhance engagement at the micro level. We're working with Facebook and helping local market presence among friends within a local market geography to know about events or to set up challenges. As a consequence, we ourselves don't need to develop web or mobility. We certainly leverage it, and the more that proliferates, the more there's two-way communication in real time in a specific location, the more opportunity we have to interact with our members and give timely prompts to drive one more incremental action that will improve the environment.
How about think about the value chain, the supply chain? How do you interact with manufacturers or people on the design side? Say could behave better that makes your constituents incentivize their lives easier in the recycling side?
We are involved. That conversation is only starting to gain steam over the last 6 to 9 months. Over the period of the Great Recession between 2008 and 2011, managers were very much focused on their own supply chain, bringing efficiencies, driving operational efficiencies up and down the supply chain. Now, just in the last 6 to 9 months, there's an effort underway, or at least an inquiry on how to design for sustainability. So, not they go beyond cradle to grave, but real world cradle to cradle. So, as a consequence, because of our consumer-facing touch points, where we are the largest laboratory about this, because management is a key partner of ours, and actually, at the end, whatever goes into the recycling stream, the process, and so the consumer packaged good companies better design their packaging to make the processing easier on the recapture side. We're facilitating more and more meetings with management and some of our key partners incorporate design elements so it's designed for recoverability up front. But I would say as a mega trend, it's still in the, using a baseball analogy, in the top of the first inning.
Okay, something to look forward to. Excellent. In living laboratory, so you've been collecting data. You understand how the customer thinks, the consumer thinks, or the customer thinks. What do you think about their motivations now? What sort of trends are you seeing?
So it is interesting, and we've gone to a size and we've refined our processes so that we have a fairly good real-time pulse on the state of the state. Frankly, the Great Recession, with the disappointment of what we broadly call sustainability 1.0 green press, really a level of apathy and disengagement among the general populace with regards to sustainability through much of 2012, and starting in 2008. You saw a very distinct trend line where individuals were much more concerned about keeping a roof on their head as well as food on their table. Frankly, sustainability took a back seat. It was nice to have, not a must-have. Obviously the disappointment on the first generation of quote-unquote green products, where they cost 10% more and work 10% less well, not a value proposition that was conducive to mass market adoption. What has happened recently, if I want to be very fine about it, I would say with Hurricane Sandy in October 2012, we saw a distinct change in people's attitudes, corporate attitudes, frankly. Whether it was because Hurricane Sandy was of a level of destruction that was so visible, and given that New York is such a vital center and media market, it's because finally the global recovery is starting to take hold and people are feeling better about their own situation, or because people have woken up to the fact that these environmental incidents are happening with greater regularity and greater severity. I don't know exactly what the catalyst is, but the last 9 months we have seen a distinct among individuals and members. I think that we might be on the precipice of kind of the next push forward as a group.
Maybe we're out of the first inning on that one as well.
Hopefully.
one of the things that struck me is the complexity of what you do and bringing all these different stakeholders when you launch a region. So, back to the issue of when you launch a region, what makes a region good? So, who, similar to that, who do you reach out to first? Where you need the people like the haulers, you need policy, there are customers, there are manufacturers, you need to get retailers involved. Where do you start, and how do you bring them all at the table?
So we start with waste management because, one, they have 47,000 employees, so they should have had more people on the ground for longer than we have, obviously. To understand all the local market nuances and the personalities involved and the dynamics much more so than anybody. And so we met with them first, who would actually be receptive and where could we make the most impact? And frankly, where will we get the most support after launch? Because that's a critical component of it. Obviously, once we have that vetted, we approach various cities, the municipalities, the town councils, the mayors, the directors of sanitation or fire. And then, once we get that involved, we will look at aligned partners. So that could be everyone from a regional or national firm that has a headquarters in that area to firms that have a special interest in sustainability for that region. So case in point, right now, Atlanta is considering implementing the Recyclebank program. Obviously, Coca-Cola is a big partner of ours. That's their hometown. They are interested in participating in a meaningful way in further amplifying the engagement of the community. Starts with the hauler, and specifically with management, and we amplify that and bring other parties involved.
Makes sense. It sounds like you're starting to understand the process of execution, or you're probably well along that chain, but I'm sure that's taken a while to get there. Getting behavior on the community level, are the rewards, there's a question coming in about the rewards, and is it an individual basis, or is there anything in terms of teaming up with your neighbor and that brings the community together? They see the macro picture of how much savings they're does it get smaller than that? In
so
with your block or your neighbor?
You log on as a authenticated member of Recyclebank, not get to see how much you saved or ever earned, but you get to see what your city actually has saved or earned and the environmental impact of that. So far, we do collect a lot of data, not only the physical weight data, but obviously a lot of behavioral data, a lot of transaction data, obviously. Three components: education and recognition play, if not bigger roles than the incentives, which, for most parts of the journey, knowing what to do and why it's impactful and being patted on the back for it is more meaningful than, a couple more for it. These actually come into play on the behavioral journey steps when step to step or when it hits a kind of a wall a bit, and you need to get them to the next level. And so I think the combination of education, recognition, and incentives actually is the winning formula. The larger question is, do people still act in their own interest, or are they more set on community? People do reflect back upon what benefit the household individually will get rather than the citywide. The only caveat to that is that we do have a schools program called Green Schools Program, where members to donate points to fund projects within their K-12 schools. In that case, it's something tangible, especially around their children. They tend to have much more of a community orientation. So that actually makes a lot of sense. I have 3 girls myself, so I know exactly why, when it comes to schools, people just think that the health of the system than how an individual child is doing.
And I could sympathize with the comment about recognition versus incentives. I know when I want to get my kids to get ready for bed, and I say, okay, if you do it fast, you get an M&M, or if you do it, I'll race you. It's if I race you, and the win, the recognition, always powers over whatever the incentive is. So, hey, we're at the top of the hour, or a little past it, but thank you for all the questions. Sorry if we didn't get to some of your questions, but this has been completely enlightening. What you get is wonderful, and we wish you all of the success. And thanks so much for taking the time today to explain what, as well as the intricacies and the business side of how it all works. Really valuable time together. Thank you so much.
It's my and thanks to everyone for taking the time. And I encourage all of you in your own life, make a difference each and every day, and the collective impact of that will be pleasantly present how far we come together.
Excellent. Remind everyone, this video would be available for download or on the YGL, one of the YGL sites. So, Jonathan, have a great day or evening wherever you are.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you, David. And